If there's any role in marketing that's been through enormous change the past decade, it's the CMO. That's because marketing has evolved so much. It's simply no longer about developing marketing strategies that increase brand awareness and affinity. Marketing has evolved into a blend of art and science, where digital marketing tools are no longer an option and are necessary for brands to survive. In addition, marketing teams today work closely with product and sales to ensure essential customer insights are brought to the table to help create new products and improve existing products while driving growth. It's a complex role that requires dynamic, experienced leaders who can work across departments and disciplines to get results. Today, we're fortunate to be joined by a true leader in this field, Vimeo's very own Harris Beber. I'll let Harris introduce himself in a moment, but today we'll be also welcoming BrainStation digital marketing students and alumni to this panel and discussion to ask Harris a few questions, in addition to sharing the best questions we've received through our social channels leading up to this event. So without further delay, Harris, please take a moment to share with our audience an introduction before we dive into the conversation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Harris Beber. As Ian mentioned, I am the CMO of Vimeo, where I'm incredibly fortunate to lead a team of marketers, creatives, and a community that's over 175 million strong of the most talented individuals creating video and content. And I'm really proud to be a steward of that. And my career journey, as I'm sure we'll get into a little bit about today, isn't the normal path that you think to of getting into a digital SaaS-based company. But I think it's because of that journey and the different journey path I took here that made me uniquely suited to succeed in my role in a way that I wouldn't have been if I took a more traditional path.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to unpack your experience and your learnings and your point of view on this role going forward. I want to go back to your background. You've worked in a variety of different industries, from 1-800-Flowers to Shutterfly to Amazon. Could you share with us a little bit about your biggest learnings from those industries and how they shaped and prepared you for your role as a CMO?
Sure. I think this will touch into what I alluded to. Many might see as how does selling flowers and gift baskets to photo books to diapers and consumable products make me well suited to lead a team of individuals serving creators and filmmakers in a tech environment. And what I would say is, starting early in my career right out of school at 1-800-Flowers, I really learned the power of emotions and driving customer behaviors and what motivates people to purchase. And 1-800-Flowers is an early innovator in the digital space, certainly in the .com. I started my career right after, I guess you call the .com bust in the early 2000s. And they survived that and started to thrive selling traditional products that weren't the products themselves, but the events they celebrated. So life events motivated people. And how do you make those connections during important life events? From there, which wasn't on that list, I actually left to start my own company, which was really formative in shaping my ability to understand the way a whole company operates. When you're two people in a basement, you don't have a team of resources across different functions. You are that team. And we would joke when whoever answered the phone, they were customer service. And if they needed to speak to PR, it was the other person. And you make yourself seem bigger than you are. But by wearing so many hats, I became an operator of a business and understand what drives a business forward, which to me has served me as a marketer because I understand what's important and the important levers. And from there, going to Shutterfly and capturing people's memories and making those moments last by bringing them to life in a physical product and photo books, and really taking the physical and digital and marrying those two worlds was really important. It was a different acquisition funnel for me. It was very digital, and I really led the full digital ecosystem there. And I left there to go to Amazon, which is a very data-driven company. And if you think about the products that Amazon sells, they're not differentiated, they're other people's brands, and it becomes about price and selection. But more importantly, what are the behaviors you need people to take, and being really data-driven. Mm-hmm. And Amazon really instilled in me the importance of data and taking the long view of a customer. What are the behaviors someone takes today that makes them a good, long-lasting customer and keep coming back to you? And driving those behaviors to drive the overall lifetime value is something that Amazon is exceptional at. It's what makes them such a formidable competitor to anyone in any vertical that they operate in. And I think when I look at those, understanding customer behaviors, understanding the importance of telling stories and bringing those to life, whether it's digital or physical, and then using data to drive a business forward, that really set me up for success and really finding my lane at Vimeo. When the recruiter called and reached out to me, I said, I don't think you have the right person. I have an e-commerce background. I have no SaaS or traditional tech background. But as I took an interview with the CEO, Anjali, who had a similar marketing background as myself, also worked at Amazon, I really saw the synergies of what Vimeo was looking to do and evolve as a company played really well to where I think my expertise lies.
That's incredible. What a journey. Thanks for sharing that. And certainly painting the picture of a modern world marketer. Nothing wrong with the era prior, which was more about the art of marketing and building affinity and building brands, now become very data centric, and how to leverage a plethora of tools and platforms to your advantage, and understanding your customers, both on a B2C side and a B2B side, which we'll get onto in a moment, which is a unique kind of position you're in, straddling both those worlds, which I'm sure a lot of marketers that are tuned in will be interested to hear how you tackle both of them at a company that has both those audiences. Now, over the course of your career, is there any project or campaign you've worked on that really sticks out in your mind as one that you're most proud of, and why?
Let me think. I don't know most proud of, but I would say most critical or pivotal for me was when I started out on starting a company with my business partner and I. We went into, it was a space in e-commerce where we paired charitable giving with your purchases. So you could purchase any product through hundreds of brands that we worked with, and 10% of your purchase went to a charity of your choice. So this was really early days. It didn't exist. There was, Product Red was out. There was Pink for breast cancer, one product, one cause, but this really enabled people to support causes they believed in with their everyday purchases. And I believe it was 3 months into launching our business. It was Valentine's Day, which is a big holiday in the gifting space. And we had, I think, 500 orders sitting on a plane, and there was a blizzard in the Midwest, which is where we were shipping from. And every one of them was grounded, and not one of those orders was gonna arrive on Valentine's Day. And I remember going to bed that night saying, we're sunk, we're done, before we even started, thinking our business was failed. I came from 1-800-Flowers, where during the holidays, it's all hands on deck. You take customer service calls, and when you don't deliver, customers are rightly upset. I thought that was gonna happen. We were gonna have to issue refunds. We didn't have money in the bank to give refunds. And to my surprise, I stayed up thinking the phone would ring. We maybe out of those 500 orders got 1 or 2. We sent an email notifying them. But because our business was rooted in giving back and serving a higher purpose of supporting causes they believed in, people took that. They believed in our mission of being purpose-driven and supporting causes. And they didn't buy from us because we had the best flowers, which I thought we did. They bought from us because they believed in supporting their organization. And the reason why I say it was a pivotal moment for me is it really instilled in me the importance of purpose. And when you stand for something and customers shop with you because they believe in your mission and your purpose, then they will come with you for the ups and downs. But if you stand for low price only and you only sell on that value prop, then when they find it for 5 cents cheaper, when they go on Google and search for things, they will go to the cheapest product they find. So you need to stand for more than just the products. It's who you are as a company. And that, well, it's certainly not my proudest moment of having a failure when you're starting. It was certainly one of the most important moments in my career in terms of how do you build purpose for your mission and brand.
Critical to survive those tough times. That's a great story, and thanks for highlighting that campaign and that experience. We're going to welcome one of our students now to the discussion, Victoria. Victoria, are you there?
I am. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Victoria. Thanks so much for taking the time to tune in. It's wonderful to see you. And we know that you have a question for Harris. I'll hand it over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. This is such a great opportunity. Hi, Harris. My name is Victoria Miller, and I am currently a student in BrainStation's digital marketing diploma program based in Toronto. And my question for you today is, what's the most difficult marketing challenge you faced in your career, and what did you learn from it?
Sure. It's a good question. I think, as Ian had mentioned, marketers go through lots of transformation. So The reality, I'm sorry for everyone that's joining in, is that you're going to be faced with lots of difficult challenges. I think if you're doing your job well, you're as soon as you have it figured out, within a matter of weeks or months, it's not figured out anymore. The world shifts. So for me, one of the biggest challenges I had was I came into Amazon. I was leading a subsidiary of 10 different websites, and we were consolidating the marketing functions. The businesses were growing really well, but the businesses were also losing tens and tens of millions of dollars. And I came in at a point when Amazon said to the company, it's great, but you've lost a lot of money last year. You're on track to lose a lot of money this year. You're not allowed to do that anymore, right? So as a marketer, I was tasked with delivering growth while being profitable. And I think that is, if you think the holy grail of the brass ring of marketing is if you could deliver sustainable, scalable growth, which means you're delivering top line growth, but also delivering enterprise value through lifetime value. That's what we all achieve for it. I think that is the purpose of marketing, is expanding the reach of your company, delivering customer acquisition, and then ultimately long-term lifetime value and profits. And when you have to find a way to do profitability, when you spend at all costs to drive growth, and now you're saying, drive growth, but do it profitably, that's a different function. And I had to reorient the whole team, thinking about the insights and data that matter. We had to rethink everything that we thought was important. We had metrics. One of the KPIs we had, which no one else has ever heard of, was NDB, which is a new diaper buyer. So people who bought diapers, moms and dads that bought diapers, were good customers because babies use lots of diapers and they come back frequently. But when in reevaluating that, we found that actually if customers came and only bought diapers, we drove a lot of revenue, but we also lost a lot of money. It was the diapers plus the other ancillary products like clothing and toys and food and other products that we sold. Those were the best customers. So we had to reshift our marketers to driving promotion and product that bundled those together to drive the behaviors we want. And when I go back to what I said earlier, it really instilled the value of what are the behaviors that you know lead to success, understanding what do you need to achieve. And then marketers are very good at optimizing for outcomes when they know what they need to optimize for. So starting there was quite possibly the biggest challenge I ever had, because delivering growth while also becoming profitable is no small feat. But what it instilled is understanding what you need to do to succeed. What are your measurements of success and KPIs? And then how do you build promotions and tactics and strategies that deliver those behaviors is the key to unlocking that. And that was rethinking. And we had to break everything to do that. It was a mindset shift, which is not easy to do.
Wow, thank you for that.
Awesome.
Thanks for asking.
Great question. Thanks, Victoria. Moving on to your role at Vimeo, Harris. If you had to describe Vimeo's marketing strategy in one sentence, what would that be? And can you tell us more about why that approach is right for Vimeo?
Yeah, so I think I kind of touched on it towards the end. Our marketing team here is responsible for expanding the reach of our platform, delivering customer acquisition, and then ultimately revenue growth. I think that, as you mentioned, traditionally when people think about marketing, it's like, oh, the big fun brand campaigns. But now, more than ever, marketers are accountable for revenue and growth. And the blessing and the curse of marketing is everything you do is measurable. And that's the blessing. And the curse is everything you do is measurable. So it's very clear to see the impact of most things, not everything, and whether it's working or not. And you're held accountable for that. So for us, we work really closely with product. We are a product-driven org. There are some organizations like Amazon or other ones that are marketing driven, like you sell products, marketing is really the engine. Vimeo, we don't have a marketing engine without the product. So if we know who we're targeting and what the value that they need to do, marketing's role is to demonstrate the value of our products to the right people, get them to our platform and ultimately convert. And then it doesn't end there. Then how do we help them succeed with the tools and the services that we offer so they stay with us, right? Because if your goal is only acquisition, you can scale. You need acquisition, retention, and then ultimately expansion, getting people to use more products and services. And we serve that full end-to-end suite. And we are not fully accountable. We work with product marketing. We work with different teams as part of that and the community team. But that's from end to end, top to bottom, marketing serves a purpose in each of those areas.
Excellent. And building upon that, you just touched on the makeup of your team. Could you share a little bit more about how you've structured your team and the different functions and roles within marketing that are so important to your success?
Yeah, I think we're going through an evolution now as we scale and grow. And as I think everyone knows now, we're doing this over Zoom, and you've always been digital first learning, but a lot of organizations are shifting, and video has served as an important connector during these times when people aren't allowed or able to be together physically. So that's obviously caused an acceleration of a strategy that we knew was out there and effective of serving different segments, but it accelerated it over weeks and months instead of years. So we've evolved, and our makeup is on the top level of how do we create awareness and demonstrate the value of our product. And then we think, okay, now we know how to do this. How do we reach the people that matter? And you think about traffic and paid, a mix between paid and organic traffic, so CRM and paid media. And then where do we bring them? How do we demonstrate value on our site? What's the best pages to convert a user, to show our value, to get them to either sign up for a trial or make a purchase? And then after we get through that transaction, it doesn't stop there. Is how do we help people be successful? Our mission at Vimeo is to help any business succeed with video. We want to make it attainable and accessible. And to do that, we have all these tools that help facilitate that, but we need to have users using that. And marketing serves a purpose to that with content as well. So we have creative and design and campaigns. We have paid media and organic traffic, CRM, and content that serves throughout the journey. And all those pieces together create one cohesive customer journey.
Yeah, and you just touched on the reality of digital being the fabric that ties it all together. And so I guess the next question I have for you is, who owns digital between the CTO, CIO, and the CMO? And how do you all work together in that endeavor?
At the risk of sounding contrarian, I think the question is flawed. If you answer that question, you're doomed to fail, because everyone has to own digital. The best companies, at least that I've been in, is where it's a shared accountability. And at Vimeo, product has a responsibility for building products that serve a real value and deliver value, solving the needs and video needs. And marketing's responsibility is to raise awareness, demonstrate that value to their target users, drive adoption, and together it's a 1-2 punch. It doesn't work without both of us. And I work very closely. One of the closest colleagues I have is at Vimeo. We have a CPO and a CTO. It's one role. They oversee product and engineering. Yeah. And if he doesn't build a product that has real value, it doesn't matter how creative our campaigns are, how good our targeting is, how optimized our click-through rates are, and every tactic that everyone is learning at BrainStation. You ultimately have to have a product that works and has a product market fit. So they go hand in hand. Yeah. So I would rephrase the question is, what are the best ways that cross-function teams could own digital together? Because that's the recipe in my mind for success of really demonstrating value and offering. Absolutely.
And that would be true for physical products too, in terms of the ownership of the experience and how to improve. It's not just technology and SaaS for that matter. We're going to welcome another BrainStation, well, an alum actually, Bonnie. Let's welcome Bonnie to the discussion. Bonnie, just checking that you're there.
I'm here.
Hi, Bonnie. Thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you. I'll hand over to you to propose your question to Harris.
Thank you for having me. Hi, Harris.
Hi.
Ben. I can really relate to the NDB KPI that you mentioned. I am a huge diaper buyer. So yeah. Okay, my question to you is that all CMOs had to make a long-term and short-term changes in their marketing strategy during COVID. I'm just curious, can you share how Vimeo adopted its strategy and how those decisions were made?
Yeah, they were made in real time. I think the reality is no one was prepared for the pandemic and the way it impacted every facet of our life, from the way we work to the interactions we have on a daily basis. And this was as true as it could possibly be for Vimeo. On February 27th, we probably launched the single biggest product of at least my history at the company over the last 3 years, which was a mobile video editing tool. And the purpose of this was to help small businesses succeed with video, making social videos that drive impact and grow their business. We spent months, as you can imagine, months and months developing the product, months and months planning on our go-to-market strategy. We shot a whole campaign with great videos, compelling creative that people put lots of hours of sweat and hard work into. And just about a day before we were going to launch all that creative, it became clear that the world was not the world that we intended. And the market and the people that we were serving, which our mission is to help creators and businesses, were deeply impacted. Businesses didn't care about building their brand. They didn't care about growing their business. They were literally faced with shutting their doors and surviving. How am I going to navigate a world when I can't even keep my doors open? I don't know how I'm going to get customers. Restaurants, gyms, fitness instructors, everything from synagogues and churches and faith, all these places of community were shut down. And it didn't make sense to launch a campaign that was high energy, upbeat, grow your business, will help you succeed. And we made the decision to kill it. So lots of money and time invested. We refactored, we still had the product out there. We created an enormous amount of templates in our tool to help businesses go remote. So whether that was curbside pickup, delivery, we had services letting fitness studios go online and virtual, doing live streaming classes, educators and faith organizations doing services remotely to keep their community together. And all of a sudden our platform really became this lifeline for businesses and organizations to stay together, and we shifted our focus. And right in the midst of this, we said, you know, as a platform that serves both our community of creators and small businesses that need to use video, they're both struggling right now. Creators, directors, filmmakers, they're out of work because productions were shut down, and businesses aren't making money because they had to shut their doors. And we had a responsibility to tell those stories. So what we did is we reached out to our filmmaker community. We put a call to action for them, and we said, we'd like you to tell a story about your favorite business in your community and how they've been impacted. And we gave them a grant as well as a small business a grant. And this was not a business driver. This was a community investment in our community. And in 3 weeks from idea to launch of those films, we had 8 amazingly heart-wrenching, inspiring stories that were produced remotely with social distancing, of everything from restaurants that pivoted to serving frontline workers and giving nurses and doctors meals, to a tattoo shop who had to close and their story, to a comic book store doing surprise bags. And we told these 8 compelling stories of businesses that were struggling and thriving, told through the lens of our filmmaker community. And if you know anything about film or video, these are craft, these are high-end, these aren't social videos, these were documentaries that were made in 3 weeks. It's nothing short of amazing. There was animations, stop motion, real films. And that was an example of how we pivoted an acquisition growth campaign to focus on what our community and audience needed most, which is just their stories to be told. And that's one thing that I love about Vimeo and video. It's in a compelling medium to share storytelling. And so I think that answers your question, but that's where we had to kill our growth initiatives, not kill them, put them on pause. There's a time for that, and really serve our community that has been there for us and is the lifeblood of Vimeo.
Excellent question.
Thank you, Harris.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie. So Harris, just moving along on that train of thought in terms of building brands, you pivoted your strategy to give back to the community and to really drive your purpose to a certain degree. A lot of marketers who might be tuned in today are trying to find this balance between brand marketing and growth marketing, the explosion of performance marketing, the focus on a return on investment in digital channels. How do you find this balance in your role as a CMO, deciding where to invest your dollars in terms of building brands and then also growing the business from an ROI standpoint in digital channels?
We talked about the evolving role of CMO. My thoughts on this have evolved.
Yeah.
I come from a digital background, so I probably am the oldest you could be by being completely digital native. So I started, as I mentioned, early 2000 in an e-commerce scenario. So my pedigree is all data-driven, digital marketing. Mm-hmm. I don't come from, a lot of traditional marketers come from like a CPG background where it's brand marketing and they're leveling up. So when I came to Vimeo, I really had to up-level my skills in brand marketing. And we did invest in a brand campaign that served a lot of purpose, but didn't meet all our criteria of really moving the needle in a measurable way in where we tested it. And how I've evolved my thinking is the best campaigns can accomplish both. And for Vimeo, we talked about creativity and our community and storytelling. And if we can leverage that, but keeping our product and our community at the core, you could achieve both in terms of telling your brand mission, and it comes through in everything you do, the stories of success of people using video to succeed, but telling them in compelling story-driven video ways. but measuring the impact on the behaviors you want to drive. And when you can marry the two, then it doesn't have to be a trade-off between, okay, we're going to do this big awareness campaign. How do we measure that with the search campaigns and the trade-off of the truly measurable? Because you need both, right? The beauty of, if you're just starting out, search is the number one thing you should do. It's the most measurable. It's the highest impact. There's a high intent users. Video hosting, you know that they're interested in video hosting, you capture it. The problem with search marketing is it's finite. It might be a huge number, but finite nonetheless. If there's 100,000 people searching for your keywords, at most you could find 100,000 people. But if you want to find 1 million customers or 10 million customers, you have to create intent. And that's where brand and awareness marketing serves in. And if you think of it as a full funnel of using higher level awareness storytelling to create the intent, saying you need video to drive your business goals, and then demonstrating the value and pulling them along to get them to try, then the two marry them together. And it shouldn't be one or the other. It's the right integration of both of them. At least that's how I view it. There are some brands that are completely brand driven and some that are completely performance and growth driven. But for us, as a powerful video platform that thrives in storytelling, we find, and where we're leaning to, is the balance between both, that you could do both and do them well.
That's such a great answer. Thanks, Harris. That would have answered a lot of questions people would have had in their minds coming into this. Really helpful how you find that balance and don't over-index on one or the other, because the brand marketing helps to grow the market, and your growth marketing helps to take advantage of that increased intent and user sort of profile. Yeah. Moving on to a question here that we received from Stephanie on LinkedIn. She asked, how do you ensure consistent brand voice across all channels? Because there's creating very well curated, high quality videos that you then get out there in your channels. And then there's also tapping into your community, as you touched on, in creating authentic videos that tap into your brand, but you don't have full control over them. How do you ensure brand voice across?
I think you have to have space for both, and you have to know what the vehicle is. So Stories in Place, which I mentioned before, which was created during COVID, we intentionally said we're not going to be able to control this. For this to be authentic, it has to be the creator, the director's story. They're passionate about it. It has to be told through their lens. And it was a risk because you don't have a lot of control, and it could have gone horribly wrong. But we had faith in our community and their talent and their ability to tell stories, and that had a space. That wasn't meant that was meant to be their vision brought to life, that we could just support it through the grant and the platform and our reach. But when I think about marketing that is R-driven marketing, whether we're telling customer stories or we're building banner ads or performance videos or social videos, that is, you have to have good brand guidelines so that when you have any copywriter or writer that's coming along, they know the guidelines. A good vehicle that I found our team did is, we're this, we're not that. And there's ways of saying, you know, we're witty and quirky in our language. We're not lowbrow and go for humor and the punch, right? So there's ways you can phrase it and show with real examples of what you are and how you come to life and what you're not. And I think Vimeo as a brand that's known for being creative and quirky and a little off center, we want to maintain that in all we do, but not at the sacrifice of clarity. And that's where having those guidelines of how we bring that to life and giving real examples gives us some guardrails for people to work in. And the reality is we don't always get it right. That's as you evolve. It's not easy to maintain a brand voice in a search ad, right? Or in a social post that you get very limited characters to work with. So we have to balance those out, and together collectively we keep narrowing that focus and build them in the guides that we have.
Excellent. And question I'm interested in, do you tap into influencer marketing much?
We do. We're finding the right way. We haven't historically. Our influencers have been our community. We have this community of creators and their filmmakers, and our curation team of highlighting those voices. Now, with Vimeo Create, which is our mobile editing tool, that's a whole new market. Vimeo was always known for the highest talent filmmakers, storytellers who craft the longer form content. The reality is social video, the stat that I always lean in on is, I think 75% of views happen in the first 4 days, which means if you post something on Monday, by Friday, pretty much no one is seeing it. So you don't have that time and investment. You have to create high quality content at scale frequently. And that's a different market that we're serving. And we've worked with influencers, whether it's social influencers, small brands that are using video successful, to get them using our tool. And it's less about, hey, they're going to be trendsetters, and more about, these are the people we want to serve, and we want to get our tool in their hands to understand what's working, how does it serve their needs, and how do we adapt our product to be better suiting those groups. And if you look at the people that are leading the pack and you can make it work for them, then the other people that are aspiring to be them and grow their business but might not be there, then we'll serve their needs as well.
Perfect. Thanks. I want to introduce Gray Robinson here to the discussion. Gray is one of our digital marketing diploma students. Welcome, Gray.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for being here today, Harris. We really get a lot out of this. As Ian said, I'm Gray Robinson, a digital marketing student here at BrainStation. And to kind of return to this theme of evolution, which I think has been very insightful so far, I'm really interested to hear you reflect a bit on how digital marketing has evolved throughout your career and what you think the value or opportunity of becoming a digital marketing specialist is today.
Yeah. I think with each function throughout my career, there was different opportunities. New platforms with scale always represent opportunity from like taking advantage. So if you think about what Google search was 10 years ago, and now it's table stakes and you're really optimizing to even make it profitable because everyone's there. Then there was Facebook and Instagram. There's huge opportunities with TikTok and brands that are leveraging that to tap into the audience and scale. So I think always thinking forward by executing on the fundamentals that'll give you your scale and your day-to-day, but where you could be ahead of the game, where you're seeing trends and tapping into them, those could create opportunities for incremental growth that you're not thinking about. And then all of this is rooted into what I go back to of data-driven, right? How do you measure? And now that might always be last click attribution, but how do you create the right journeys to understand where you can measure impact, not necessarily attribution? And those are two different things. And the reason why I bring that up is because everyone who's on this or should know is we're going to be faced with another evolution. If you're not familiar, iOS is launching iOS 14. They're putting in tracking restrictions where every app now has to get permission for tracking. You think of the browsers that are putting in cookie tracking or anonymous browsing, and all the things that as consumers we think, I don't want people tracking me. But as marketers that we use to hone our marketing and make it more efficient and target the right users with the right message at the right time, those are getting restricted. So you have to trust more in the platforms. And the reason why I bring that up is if the algorithms are getting better, even though you're blind to them at finding the right users, then what makes you stand out, presumably that your competitor has access to the same algorithm as you, is your creative and your messaging and what you stand for. And if you're just a company that stands for a widget or a product at $9.99, it's going to be really hard to differentiate yourself. So really understanding your purpose and how you demonstrate value and understanding user empathy and how you serve them and help them be successful will be, I think, the future evolution as we lose more and more data tracking to really standing out and converting.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks a lot for that.
Thanks, Gray. That was a great question, and a term we're starting to hear more about lately is this term full stack marketers, who are able to find that special blend of building a brand that is up to a greater purpose, while at the same time understanding the breadth of channels that they have at their disposal, and then how to make the most of those, but then stay on top of those platforms and how to make the most of those platforms from a technical standpoint, which is where performance marketing, growth marketing plays a really key role. And so if you can build both of those skills up, like you've done over your career in terms of going actually up into brand building versus what a lot of marketers are doing is the other way around, trying to become more sort of digital marketing savvy. Thanks for that answer, Harris. We're going to go to a question that we received from Jihan on LinkedIn. What is your main customer acquisition channel at Vimeo?
It's a mix of both, and it evolves. Obviously, I mentioned search. So if you're marketing at scale, search is core to it because it's the easiest to target high intent users. You know that there's areas that your product serves, and people searching for those are likely good targets. So I would say it's a mix of search, but then we're spread across video, which obviously we believe deeply in, where we think there's a lot of scale. and social, where there's great targeting of user intent and behaviors and surfacing that with a mix of video and other engaging content. And then finding ways to bring content into performance marketing. So historically, I think a lot of people think of content marketing in the frame of SEO, but for us, when we're selling a complicated product, it's not just, oh, I'm looking for a shirt. J. Crew has a shirt that matches it. I like it. I click and I buy. Vimeo's sales process and decision process happens over months sometimes over years. We have people that are in our free product for years and then they convert years later. So performance marketers on our team have a challenge of their feedback loop is lower. So how do they keep finding those behavior and signal intents and then optimize our digital channels? So to go back to the question, it's a mix. We don't have one channel that is our biggest growth driver. Digital is there, and it's a digital mix between video, mobile marketing, and app marketing, search and the fundamentals there, and paid social, and then there's display and retargeting in there. So for us, it actually is spread across all of them, and you get to a certain level in your marketing dollar that you reach, each level has its limits, right? So if you start and you're doing the true performance marketing because that's the highest return, but then you reach the limit, but you want to grow more, you layer on more of the top of funnel and higher intent. And then what you end up with is a mix of the right top of funnel awareness drivers like display, video, content that fuel and create more search and high intent searches down in the bottom of funnel for search. And that's where we've had to get to our evolution, where it is split pretty evenly across of those. Now the ROI is different for each of those, but without the lower ROI, higher funnel tactics, you can't fuel scale on the bottom funnel, higher ROI tactics.
Yeah, very clear answer. Thanks, Harris. Now we're going to move on to a different question, which is more about the career of an individual. And there's a question here that was around, given your experience and hiring for partners in your team, is there a trait or a skill that you always look for in a potential hire, and what makes them stand out?
Yeah, it's very clear. I have a very clear answer on this. And it's not a trait or skill that's going to be on a resume. It's aptitude and solution-oriented problem solving. And I'm very steadfast in this belief because, as we just spent the last 30 minutes talking about, our world is dynamic. It's changing on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. So while you've achieved enormous amount of success on paper and in your past careers, the certainty of that being relevant to the problems we have to solve tomorrow is not clear. So what I want to have is really smart people with high aptitude that look at problems and say, how am I going to solve this, and come up with creative solutions to tackling the problems of the future. Those are the people that will always have growth and career path, even if there's reorgs or changes. People who know how to solve problems and think creatively about delivering solutions are the most valuable people on any team. They always have the most highest velocity career paths because it's not about the function that they were hired for. It's about the solutions they could deliver for any challenge that we face as a business. And as I started this conversation, the challenges are numerous. The challenges are never ending. So if you could have a solution-oriented mindset, that is what sets you up for success. And at Vimeo, we do have a process that there's rounds of interviews you go to, and when you get to like the final few candidates, we do have an assignment of sorts where we give them a challenge. And there is no right or wrong answer a lot of times in those projects that we give people to present. We want to understand how they think about solving the challenge that they've been presented with. We intentionally give you imperfect information. We don't give you all the details. We know there's gaps that you won't have as an outsider and not having all the internal data. But what we want to know is how you think about solving the problem, how you go about it. And if you could demonstrate that you have a clear methodology for doing that well, those are the people that we want on our team.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that insight. Moving on to the discussion around the CMO of the future. This is one I'm really interested in, and it's just evolved so much over the last decade, as we've already touched on. And when speaking with other CMOs, chief revenue officers and chief commercial officers, are there trends that you're all worried about or excited about when it comes to the future of marketing?
Well, worried about data, right? We use one of the last evolutions of the CMO is data-driven marketing, right? Data has become so integral now, and rightly so, with data being misused by some platforms in not great ways that customers are rightly protective of how their data is used. Marketers get less and less access to that. So that just means we have to reinvent how we do things. I don't know how that fully will come to life, but that's the thing. I don't think that scares me. It scares me. It keeps me up at night, but it presents the biggest opportunity, because the ones who adapt and solve for driving growth and scale with imperfect data or partial data, or finding new innovative ways to demonstrate your value to audiences and customers, those are the ones that will thrive. That'll be the next evolution, I think, for us, is being that we've been so accustomed to data-driven marketing and we've gotten so accustomed to being accountable to data. What happens when a lot of that data disappears, right? So that's how we'll have to adapt. So I think that's going to be part of the future. I think where I've thrived, and I said this started from my career when I was owner of my own business, is I think more and more CMOs that I see succeeding that I talk about are operators. They're not just marketers. They are passionate about what makes a business work, what delivers enterprise value to your company, your community, and that doesn't sit solely in marketing. That means you're close with finance. You understand the profit metrics. You understand the ins and outs of what moves the levers for our profitability, where your cost structure is. You work with product and roadmaps, and you're partnering across the organization. So then, as you said earlier, you could bring that to life. And the way we could demonstrate value to users is understanding that. And we really sit at that intersection of, for Vimeo, community, storytelling, and data. And that's me, is the intersection of many areas. That's for Vimeo, but the future marketer is going to be at the intersection of pretty much every area of the company.
Yeah, it's a pretty essential role. And we've seen a lot of companies actually moving away from the title CMO, turning it into any number of different titles you can imagine. But the role itself, the function of the role, will always be important. How you are playing as a key connector between different functions on the product and the sales org and on the technology side is really essential. Now, how do you see the expectations of the CMO evolving? Do you think you'll be judged more on your profitability or your returns, or on building a brand that becomes recognized across the globe for years to come?
I think all of the above, and it depends on the organization, the stage you're in as a company, the goals that you're measuring. And by the way, it's going to be all of the above on a given year, right? There's times in a company life cycle where you want to demonstrate that you could be profitable. So you really turn the dials and fine tune everything that you're doing to maximize profit. And then there's times and you want to accelerate growth, and you're going to loosen those dials up, and you want to say, where do we have audience and market share and addressable market? And you have to prove that there's scale there. So I think ultimately marketing is accountable for growth. Now that could be growth in numbers, growth in users, growth in community, revenue, and it really is going to be which of those, all of those, depends on the company, the stage of the company, and what the company goals are at that given moment of time.
Amazing. With a few more minutes to go, I've got 2 more questions before we open up to Q&A. So if you've got any questions out there, please be sure to send them our way, and we'll get Harris to tackle as many of those as possible. Harris, you're doing brilliantly. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So question here around your thoughts on a leader or a brand that you look to for inspiration.
There's lots. I mean, there's no shortage of brands that are doing great things. For me, I think at the core of that are the brands that really have embodied storytelling. Those are the ones that have lasting, right? They stay through time. One of those, the best at that for me, is Nike. They have found a way to do storytelling, to have cultural moments, that storytelling is in the fabric of their DNA. So when they do it, it feels authentic because they've proven it. It's not just a stunt. They do it. It's at the core of who they are. And so Nike is just one of those brands that is so aspirational because they do it in so many ways. And the beauty of what they do is not just in the stories they tell and how they bring them to life in such a moving way that resonates, but it's also that they're able to keep their product at the core of the story, but it is not the focus of the story. And one example that I think our creative director shared with me recently, which was great, is Breaking 2, which was a campaign that they did where they wanted to break the 2-hour marathon. And they did that through product and technology, but the story was about this elite athlete that no one has ever broken a 2-hour marathon, and how the first time they did it, they failed, by the way. They didn't break it, and there was a lot of effort. And then they revamped it. They came out with their Zoom Pegasus shoe, which was, I think, banned because it was so innovative. But through the use of intersection of storytelling, product, technology, they were able to break this human feat that people said would never happen. and that is storytelling, but product at the core, and it brings it all together. I can't take credit for this, but Seth Godin on one of his blog posts, who's a great, insightful marketer, he talked about Nike once that really resonated with me. And he said, if Nike announced they were opening up a hotel, you'd have a pretty good guess of what that hotel would feel like. The design, the aesthetic, what you'd feel like when you walked into that hotel, because you understand Nike, people breathe it. But if Hyatt announced they were going to start making shoes, you probably have no idea what that shoe would look like. And he said, that's because Nike owns a brand and Hyatt owns real estate. So that might be a little bit extreme and harsh on Hyatt, but, and this is nothing against Hyatt, but I think he was using that to make a point, right? When brands, you know who they are because they bring it to life in all they do. And so that was a long-winded answer of.
No, it was a fantastic answer. And I just feel sorry for that athlete who didn't have the record-breaking run actually qualify as a world record run. I believe it wasn't just because of the shoe, and also it wasn't an official race or something. So, but the story really shone through across all channels and told the brand story brilliantly.
Yeah, and it goes to Nike's ethos. Just do it. We are going to do it. We will persevere. You see it. They just consistently come out with these things that as a marketer, you're like, damn. I wish I did that. I mean, Burger King is doing a lot of great for fast food. They're another brand that's doing a lot of amazing things that with brand stories and creative ways.
And Harris, a lot of marketers spend copious amounts of time sifting through newsletters and reading inspirational magazines and websites. Who are your go-to pieces of content for inspiration?
I mentioned Seth Godin is great. Simon Sinek is also great, and I believe in his ethos of the why, finding your why. This is someone that I find in general. I love Malcolm Gladwell. He has a great way of taking complex data and really dissecting it to make it make sense of why we do things. And he's a big study of human behavior. And I think so much of marketing is about understanding the behaviors that you want to drive, why they're important, and then finding ways to tap into that creatively so you can succeed as a company. So it's a collection of all those things. I'm a very data driven, so I love data, and I just consume news also. So Fast Company, Inc. I'm reading in all the markets we serve, digitally mostly, all the magazines that are in those areas, because you never know what's going to be that spark of inspiration for an idea.
Fantastic. Great resources. I love them all. Thanks, Harris. We're going to move on to the Q&A round now. So I'm going to move through as many of these as possible. We've got 8 minutes to go, and we'll let you get back to your busy schedule, Harris. So bear with us. Thank you to everyone that sent through your questions. Let's start with this question from Jillian. What is the greatest misconception about marketing that makes it challenging for the CMO to have a seat at the C-suite table?
That's a good question. I think there are some organizations, when there's a belief that marketing is about brand and it's not measurable, that's probably the misconception. I've been so fortunate that I've never been in an organization. So much of my career was nurtured because marketing drove so much of the business. And for me, I've probably gravitated to organizations like that. Anjali, who we have this incredible, inspirational CEO, I have an amazing dynamic relationship with her because she started at Vimeo heading up marketing, then became a GM, and then was promoted to CEO. So she knows the value and importance of it, but she trusts me to bring my expertise and spin to it. So I think where it struggles, if you are a product-driven organization, if the marketing isn't at the core of it, they believe that it's only brand, it's kind of hard to demonstrate impact. I think your responsibility as a marketer is how do you craft and demonstrate impact always? And impact is not necessarily in a measurable attributable KPI. Impact could be through scale and over time. Impact could mean lots of different things. And that's the balance that we find as we evolve.
Awesome. Thanks, Harris. A question here from Tina. What recommendations do you have for intermediate marketing roles? Example, growth marketing manager, working towards a CMO role.
This is where I could give my own experience is don't be afraid to take a different path. The way I think I've thrived is I said I'm an operator. I am a study and a student of every aspect of the business because I love it. That started in my first job at 100 Flowers. I literally raised my hand for every cross-functional project. I had colleagues that were like, I don't understand, why are you volunteering for that project? It has nothing to do with your goals. But I just wanted to understand how the business worked. I was done with school. I wanted to know how each area of the business worked, because that made me better at what I was doing. And then before you knew it, over 3-4 years, I was the resident expert that people were coming to for answers because I inserted myself in places that I probably had no right to be in, but I just volunteered. So I think too many people focus on, okay, I have to do this step and this step. It's okay, take a step to the right. Find a different area. You could go to product marketing, go to growth, go take on a different challenge that deepens and expands your knowledge, because that'll make you a better marketer.
Great, thank you. A question here from Bonnie. Do you work with a lot of external parties or agencies? And what are your considerations as to whether to keep things in-house versus outsource, and what's the balance?
It depends. I've had it both at different companies. We work with some external parties. For the most part, Vimeo is the most we've been internal from our teams. The benefit of internal teams is that, especially when you have a nuanced product that takes a while to understand the behaviors and stuff, no one is going to be as invested in you and your customers and your intricate details of your business as an internal employee. It's just a matter of fact. The challenge with building internal teams is you have to get it right 100% of the time. And hiring is hard. So building out a team, and if you get one head and it takes you 3 months to find that role, and then they come on board and it takes them 3 months to get up to speed, and sometimes you make a mistake and hire the wrong person, before you know it, you could be 9 months, a year where you didn't have impact. And with agencies, it's a great way to supplement growth and scale and speed because they have a bench of talent. You're not beholden to one person. They could switch out talent and they could scale at a cost. Agencies are typically more expensive, but when I've been in high growth situations where I don't have time and we want to drive scale, and the benefit of an agency is also not only do they work with you, they're working with probably 20 other customers. So they're seeing trends across the market that internal teams just don't have the ability to do it. The advantage that we have at Vimeo is we are part of IAC, which owns us as a parent company. IAC owns about varying sizes, 100+ brands. Up until recently, Match Group. We have Angie's as Home Advisor, Tinder, applications, all different companies. So we have marketing cross-functional chats where we get together and say, what are we seeing? So we get that kind of agency benefit by our internal teams, but most companies don't have that ability. And that's where an agency could really be amazing value, because the insights they could bring, like, are we just getting hit with higher media costs, or is everyone getting hit with higher media costs? Yeah. And that you can't answer internally. So there's pros and cons to both, I would say, and it depends on what stage and what your needs are.
Certainly, that's a great answer. I couldn't agree more with that. Question here from Adam: How do you think about lifetime value as a marketing metric? Is it something you use to drive acquisition efforts, and do you relate it in any way to brand building and storytelling?
The first part's easier to answer. We always think about lifetime value. Vimeo has enormous amounts of data. As you can imagine, a community that's 150, 175 million users. Some of those are paying, over 1 million of those are paying customers. The rest are either consumers of content or just using our free product. We have enormous amounts of data. And we know there's lots of ebbs and flows of those customers over the life cycle. And by the way, because I mentioned our time to conversion is much longer, we look at a lot of upper funnel metrics, things like registering, free trial, uploading a video, creating a video. These are clear intent signals, and we are able to, because of our data, look at what those signals are worth, so we could optimize our marketing for those. But with that lens of overall, we look at lifetime gross margin, so the lifetime profit, not just the lifetime revenue, because that's how we spend for ROI. So on that, and then that's on yes, everything we do is based on lifetime value and ROI. We have cohorts of customers that are, been with us 10+ years. We've been around 15 years, but we don't measure that because the world is so dynamic. We look at a tighter window for return on investment, because what worked the last 10 years might not work the next 10 years. And we just can't assume that. So we don't get over our skis, but everything we do is based on return on lifetime value. Brand marketing and growth marketing, the way we look at it for that, we look at LTV to CAC, which is our total marketing spend, a mix of brand and performance media dollars divided by the number of new customers we bring in. and that's our CAC, and then we look at the lifetime value collectively of all those. So it gets blended in, and the way you could do that is it's blended in, right? Brand marketing is driving organic traffic. It's hard to measure. So when we look at a blended average of all those things, that's how we look at our kind of collective measurement and how they come together.
And Harris, I have a final question for you, which will round this out nicely, because we've spoken about this evolving landscape in marketing and the role itself and the different skills required. How important is it to stay on top of these skills through learning? How do you keep yourself obviously informed with technical realities, not just inspiration through Seth Godin and the likes? How do you stay on top of the technical realities of this discipline, and how important is lifelong learning to be a successful marketer going forward?
It's incredibly important. It's, as you will all evolve in your career, and the further up you go, the worst part about that is the farther removed you get from the nuanced tactical details and the wins, the growth, especially when we're playing a game of razor thin inches between success and not success, profit, not profit, is in those details. So one is occasionally having to dive in. That could be someone leaves your team and you have to step in. That could be some functions aren't working, or we have to revamp things and rolling up your sleeve. The other is it's not on you to learn and know everything. It's building your network is really important. And I've spent a lot of time in this past year expanding my network of CMOs. How do they structure their org for growth? What are the people that have done it? You don't have to figure out, it's great to learn from your mistakes, but it's even better to learn from someone else's mistakes. So that's working with my other CMOs and marketing leaders at other IAC teams and looking externally at SaaS companies and what's worked for them and what hasn't. How do they look at measurement? And then it's that collection of insights and learnings that I could bring back to Vimeo that is incredible. So that would be my takeaway from that is make sure you stay in the details and keep pushing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Harris. And thank you so much. We've gone 1 minute past the hour. You've been an absolute superstar on this discussion, Harris. We've learned so much from you in an hour or even less. And I can't wait to go and reflect on this conversation. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Thank you to our students and alumni, Victoria, Bonnie, and Gray, for your questions. And those of you that sent your questions in via LinkedIn. It's been a pleasure hosting you. We're delighted to continue our digital leadership series into September. Check out the upcoming events, and we hope to see you there. Until then, thank you, Harris. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and stay well and stay safe.